Welcome to SEC Football Live here on the 440 Sports Network. My name is Braden Gall, and that is Chris Childers, of course, of SiriusXM's Full Ride, and two world travelers back from Europe, ready for SEC Media Days, baby. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Tired. Still, I don't know what it is, man. I cannot get over the jet lag, and I cannot go to bed before 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just not happening. So I'm here. I exist. Yeah. I am certainly. Where is SEC Media Days? I don't even know. Is it back in Alabama? Is it Atlanta? Is it here? Where are we going?
I'm gonna slice up some cow, baby. We're going to Texas.
Oh, it's Texas.
We're going to Texas. I don't know if you know this, Chris.
That's right.
But Oklahoma and Texas are joining the league this year. Actually, coming up in like 10 days.
You know what? I do know that, but some part of so you were just in Europe as well.
Yeah, I know.
Some part of you gets back and just kind of like forgets everything that happened. Like you were like, oh yeah, that's gonna happen now. Like July 1st is like really soon, so that's gonna happen. I was thinking about that last night. It is so weird that like we're going to be having Independence Day soon and fireworks and barbecues. And I mean, that's my favorite holiday of the year. I love July 4th for a multitude of reasons, but it's great. It's a celebration of America, the parades, everything. But it's wild to think that when we're doing that, Oklahoma and Texas are in the league, and then the Big Ten looks completely weird, and the ACC looks really weird. And it's wild. I mean, it really is, but that's like happening like really soon. Because we're all making our 4th of July plans.
Dude, talking season is already here. It's here, baby. And the thing I want to talk about today on the show is
we don't even know when it is Media Days. Can I ask you? I have no idea.
The week of the 15th, I believe.
So like pretty soon, like a month away.
Yeah, it's like a couple weeks. Yeah.
Well, I haven't been asked, so maybe I'm not going.
I don't know what you're missing, but
not much.
But it will be interesting because Texas and Oklahoma are joining. But that sort of leads us right into what I want to talk about with you today, and that is like we're sort of in the I don't want to say like the midway point of talking season, but like it really kicks up around Media Days, and we've already spent the last few months trying to analyze depth charts, trying to analyze the portal, trying to analyze rosters and coaches and schemes, and the Athlon Sports Magazine is out, so go pick up one of those.
I did 2 days ago at Barnes and Noble. Yeah.
Much appreciated. Appreciate your support. And really interesting quotes in there about a lot of these teams in the SEC. So like we're sort of starting to build how we feel about these teams and the rankings. And it's sort of the fun part of the year where we get to speculate about a lot of things. And we've talked so much about Ole Miss and their experiment and what kind of plan they're running. Kalen DeBoer taking over for the GOAT. You got Brian Kelly with one of the best coaching staffs maybe he's ever had. Just all these Nico at Tennessee, like huge storylines. But there's so much more that the SEC has to offer. And I wanted to talk to you today about some of the more underrated, undercovered storylines, teams, coaches, players in the conference. So I'm really excited to actually talk about Shane Beamer, for example, and Mark Stoops and Kentucky and Jeff Lebby's offense at Mississippi State and what the hell's happening at quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. So I sort of want to go under sort of like the middle, the soft middle belly of the SEC, as it were. So I want to talk about that today. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a little thumbs up, give us a subscribe. We would appreciate that. We'll have lots of great content for you from Dallas-Fort Worth coming up in a couple of weeks from SEC Media Days. And if you're watching on
the
Twitter,
Rangers
Facebook,
in town, have you looked? Is there like
the Texas Rangers?
Yeah, like
are they good?
I don't know. They play in Dallas area, right? It would be fun to.
Literally the only thing I know about pro baseball right now is that the New York Mets are 7-0 since Grimace threw out the first pitch.
I've heard there's a big McDonald's movement going on. Yeah.
And most importantly, starting in about 53 minutes, my University of Tennessee Volunteers take the field.
How stoked are you?
2-0, baby. 2-0.
Stoked.
I'm not kidding. The 7 and the 6-year-old, we got up the next morning after Friday, the four-run rally in the bottom of the ninth. The 4 and the 7 and the 6-year-old, we got up, we showed them, we pretended like we hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
My wife and I, and like we watched it all from like the 8th inning on Saturday morning, and like they were like my oldest is like, she's also the big sports one, so she loves the balls in general.
She likes sports, man.
She's the one who like shamed me into taking her to a Vanderbilt football game a couple of years ago.
Didn't she have like a Henny Mukhtar themed birthday or something like?
That's the other one.
Okay. Oh wow! So you got both of them kind of. See, my daughter could care less. She could.
Yeah.
She has.
Well,
no
she's like a Broadway star.
Super
so
into Broadway, but has no interest in sports at all. At all. None. Zero.
My little one is all. She's very European. She's a vegetarian who loves soccer. My oldest wants to eat nothing but meat and watch football. So she's a SEC fan.
Mine's a vegetarian that likes Broadway. So we have like a hybrid.
There we go.
Hybrid going on. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. SEC football.
Yeah, right. Those are the only two things I know about baseball, so I have no idea about the Texas.
Gotcha.
Tournament. But the point is, we'll have brisket, and we'll have lots of content for you coming at media days. And there's two stories that aren't necessarily under the radar, and I'm gonna shoehorn one in. But the first one is the Big 12 is talking about selling naming rights to their conference, which I have no idea how much that would actually cost.
Yeah,
like stadium naming rights are very expensive, and most college football teams, in particular in the SEC, you don't get to sell those. Although I think Kentucky's, they've sold theirs, but like Williams-Brice and Tiger Stadium and Neyland Stadium and Bryant-Denny Stadium, Ben Hill Griffin, you don't sell these names. So if they were to sell the SEC naming rights, I want you to give me 2 or 3 brands. Happy Wednesday, by the way, to J-Rod there. There we go. Happy Wednesday. There we go. I want to know the perfect, who has enough money.
Yeah,
that would be perfect. I've got one answer, and I want to hear if you. I want to.
I've got one answer too, and I've thought about it a lot because I thought the Big 12 thing was really interesting. And I think all that's coming. I mean, it's gonna be like soccer. It's gonna be like NASCAR. I mean, we're gonna have corporations everywhere. I mean, the conferences, the teams, the this, the that. I mean, if there'll be a little
Saws barbecue right there on UAB's uniform.
100%. I mean, they're decorated with all kinds of other different things like Hot and Hot and all the other little restaurants there in Birmingham. It's gonna look like a Kroger Sunday ad in the newspaper. But so I thought about it a lot for the SEC. What would be fitting? What would work? What would be something that would, I think, really kind of encompass the conference? What would tell a story to the world, and who would afford it? And I think it's got to be Walmart. I think it's the Walmart conference. I mean, think about the clientele you see in Walmart, and then think about the Paul Feinbaum show, and I think they're very similar people. I mean, I know what you're talking about. And I love the South. I live in it. I've been here a long time. I'm a grad student at the University of Alabama, so I certainly can take pride in it. And I shop at Walmart all the time. I mean, I'm a regular at Walmart. But to me,
Tyson Stadium, yeah, there you go.
Right there in Arkansas.
Well, isn't Walmart and Tyson Chicken next to each? Aren't they right in the same spot?
Right there. They're huge, obviously involved with the Razorbacks. So I'm curious where you're going.
Bo says John Deere. That's a good one.
Because to me, any trip I go to a Walmart reminds me of being at an SEC football game. I mean, it really does. Okay. I mean, but in the upper deck, not in the 100 level. But if you go to the upper deck of an Alabama game, very Walmart-y, very Harvey Updike-y, if you will.
I would go with Waffle House.
Yeah, not perfect.
I would go with Waffle House.
I saw that.
Waffle House to me,
yeah.
Waffle House to me is probably the brand that I think embodies. Because it's only in the South. Isn't Walmart everywhere? Walmart's around the world, I feel like. Waffle House sort of only has the
not
footprint.
Around the world. No, so
they're not? Okay.
I need you to you're gonna learn this the next time you go to Europe. Because I think when you first go to Britain, you're all excited, and then the next time you're kind of learning about the culture. So you will learn really fast that America is the country of convenience.
Well, sure.
They don't have Walmarts in Italy or Great Britain, or
they have a TK Maxx.
Yeah,
it's not
I love
it.
I know, isn't that funny when you see the TK Maxx? Little subtle. I had to go in. I mean, I had to just to say I went to TK instead of TJ Maxx, which is a real thing for those that are thinking we're joking. No, it's. And were you amazed by how many Five Guys you saw?
There are a lot of Five Guys.
I know.
You're right.
They're everywhere. They are everywhere.
So for some background, by the way, for those who are listening, My wife and I just went to London for 8 days, and you and your wife and I believe your daughter, right? Correct?
Yes,
all went
Morgan
on a
was
cruise,
there,
and
yeah.
you were in Spain and France and everything. So
Yeah.
we're all very worldly here on the show.
Of course.
Dollar General is another good one. Dollar General is a very good,
yes,
very good sponsor. I feel like a Home Depot or like Home Depot might be good.
Chick-fil-A would be very SEC. You know what I mean? Like that would be very Southeastern Conference.
I still think Waffle House, like, because it's a little bit of drunk, it's a little bit of good food, a little bit of camaraderie. It's more of it's like culturally kind of an icon in the Southeast.
The question is,
I don't know.
like, would Greg Sankey A, sell the name, and B, would he would he make it have to be something prestigious, like something located in the South, like FedEx or
Bank of America?
Yeah, something that's like not Waffle House, where you associate it with somebody in a hairnet smoking a cigarette over your omelet. Like, and that was my experience in college. Was
don't mess with Babs. Babs knows what
there was always Babs
knows how to make an omelet. All right.
Babs had a hairnet and a cigarette and the little flipper thing, and like that was. And that, I mean, that's what I associate with Waffle House. I went to Waffle House a couple months ago for the first time in probably like 15 years. And it wasn't as gross as I remembered. And I was kind of disappointed. I really was. Like, if there's no ashes in the food, it kind of, takes away that special sauce.
But here's one. The world's largest fireworks store conference.
Now that's something.
You could just be that.
And there's so many.
The world's largest fireworks.
They're popping up. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you're driving around,
you
see the
what are we doing?
Empty tents. Yeah.
Hang on. What are we doing? Why did I not think about this?
They're popping up. What?
It's Buc-ee's.
Well, Buc-ee's is wonderful, and it's based out of Texas, and it's popping up all over the Southeast. And it just means more in Buc-ee's.
It does.
I mean, I think you can really apply that. Like the way those bathroom attendants get after it, like you're never seeing any dirt.
They're clean, man. They're clean.
There's no. I'm not kidding when I tell you this. One of my greatest pleasures in life is taking a growler at Buc-ee's, because like you're. I'm not kidding. Because you're secluded, you have a chance to relax, like you're not rushing, and that you're not feel like you don't sit, feel like you're sitting.
It's well lit,
Yes, and you don't feel like you're sitting in somebody's fecal matter, like it's been cleaned.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Your shoes don't stick to the floor.
It's
great.
And then you have like a sanitizer thing, and then you can wash your hands. It's double clean.
You could, and in fact, if you do a lot of damage in there, you could take a shower. Even
you could, and then you immediately can take a right turn to the beef jerky bar.
Yeah, and then go do it all again.
100%.
You got to get reps in, dude. You got to get reps.
Goulash things they've got. I mean, it's just incredible, or whatever they're called, the little kloshki or whatever. Wonderful. Yes, Buc-ee's conference. I thought Walmart would have been a little bit more fitting, but
no, Walmart's good.
100%.
But Buc-ee's also has like this cultural thing that's attaching to itself right now. It's just sort of like doing it. I don't know how it's doing it. But to your point though,
but everybody loves it.
Would Greg? So here's the thing. Like ultimately, I do think we could be headed towards little patches on the uniforms, like the way the NBA does it. I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we're like soccer, where like the main logo is like the Fly Emirates or whatever. But I do think that we could have logo
Bank or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I would not have any problem. I think, conceding or guessing that that's where we're headed. I don't think they're ever going to sell the name of the conference. Honestly, I think if they break away and there's two major conferences, which is what guys like us have been talking about for a long time, I do think just going north-south is the way to do it. But I don't think Greg Sankey and the SEC and the people that make money off the SEC want to devalue the brand, because you take it's like Elon Musk decided to change Twitter to X, and like no one has ever lost more brand value in seconds than doing that. And so when you change the name of it's the same thing with like HBO going to Max. Like you lose enormous brand equity when you have this built up established brand over decades. I just don't think anyone's going to change the Southeastern Conference as long as it's still just teams in the Southeast. And sure, we might be shoehorning Oklahoma into that, but it's still attached. It's still attached to Arkansas. It's attached to Texas. It's attached. North Carolina joins or Clemson joins or whatever. It's all still attached. So I don't think they're ever going to do
like
it.
A Southeastern Conference presented by kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
That certainly could. So where you have to do it hand in hand every time you say it. But I agree. I think the name is too historic.
Yep.
I don't know though. Like it's interesting to me when you think about where we're going and all this naming and the money and how it's just growing exponentially. It really is just kind of amazing, when you think about and I just wonder when we're going to get to a point of collective bargaining with the kids, because
it'll happen.
It has to happen like really, really, really soon, because we're just adding more and more and getting fatter and fatter. And at some point, we've got to figure that part of it out.
Don't talk about me that way. Okay, so
look at me.
The first story I want to ask you about is sort of, it's not like underrated because it's about Texas and Oklahoma, but we got some quotes. We got some quotes in our magazine, and if you're listening to us on the podcast feed, you heard me I basically read every single anonymous coaches scouting report that we got on the SEC teams on the podcast feed. It doesn't translate well to video, so we didn't put it on YouTube. But if you want to go check out SEC Football Live on the podcast feed, you can hear every single one, or go buy an Athlon Sports magazine. But one of the quotes in there about Texas, which I thought was super interesting, and Texas and Texas A&M's quotes last year could not have been more spot on. The quotes last year about A&M and Texas were, there's a cultural problem at A&M. You can see it on television. You can see it on the sidelines. It's not getting better anytime soon. What happened? Oil Boy had to spend $70 million to fire Jimbo Fisher. The Texas scouting report last year was, it looks like they've removed the entitlement from the program. And what was the result? A Big 12 championship and a trip to the playoff. So the quote this year, so basically I say all that to say, very accurate last year on Texas and Texas A&M, those scouting reports. The one that they talked about this year with Texas, which I thought was really interesting, was normally, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the quote was essentially, normally a team has to acclimate to a conference. A team has to get used to playing a style of football, a quality of football in a new conference. But it might be the other way around this time, where the SEC is going to have to get used to Texas. And I was like, whoa, hang on. They might be really, really good, but week in, week out, the SEC is still clearly the best. So my question to you from an underrated storyline perspective is not like, there's tons of big games we can't wait to see between Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC. They're going to be awesome. Oklahoma has a lot of them. So there's lots of storylines we're talking about with Ewers and Arch Manning and Jackson Arnold and Brent Venables and Steve Sarkisian, and we've talked about all of them. The one storyline that I think we haven't touched on very much, and I want to see what you think about this, is, are they prepared more than we think to play along the line of scrimmage in the SEC? Maybe not Oklahoma, but do you think that Texas has to acclimate to the SEC, or do you think Texas is good enough to immediately step in and do the thing we've always said that the Big 12 couldn't do, which is compete along the line of scrimmage in the SEC?
I think Texas can win the league this year. So to answer your question, I think they're going to come in, and I think they're going to be just fine. Here's what I think happened. And I vehemently believe this, and I'm curious if you believe it too. Not to get into the weirdness weeds too much, but I actually think June 21st, and we're coming up on the anniversary in 2021, which is the day of the Alston case, was the day that weirdly Texas got turned around, because all of this NIL opened up, all of the NCAA's ability to be the NCAA kind of died. And I think in that moment, Texas changed. They had a cultural issue. To your point, I love those Athlon anonymous quotes. It's my favorite part of the magazine. It really does add a lot of value to the magazine, and it's one of my favorite parts of reading every single year. And a couple of years ago, I remember reading it several times on air. There was an anonymous coach that just said there was a culture problem. I mean, I don't know what Sark's going to do to fix it. There's a culture issue. There's layers, but you know what Sark did to fix it was good timing. Good luck, because the Alston case happened and it blew the doors open. And I think in that moment, there was a cultural reset. Who you could have on the team was different. The Billy Bobs and Bubbas with the big gallon hats and the belt buckles could play the game. And all of a sudden, Texas was different. So I don't see any difference between Texas and anybody in the SEC. So to me,
and they get a better schedule than Oklahoma.
They do. So I think they're going to be fine. Oklahoma, I think Brent Venables is not elite. I think it's the one thing that Joe Castiglione, and we'll see what happens with Porter Moser, but if you think about Joe Castiglione and his time at Oklahoma, most things that he's done has turned to gold. You know, the Bob Stoops era was fantastic. They went to the playoff a lot. They had success. They won a championship early on in his career. And then you look at what happened with Lincoln Riley and multiple Heisman Trophy winners, things were great. The basketball program had success with Lon Kruger. Patty Gasso wins championships routinely. Joe Castiglione was really well thought of. This was a critical hire. This was a guy that you brought in that certainly, had a great reputation at Clemson for his defenses. He's a guy that had a brand name. But I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that this guy's got the juice. He's got the stuff. And maybe that's an Oklahoma issue. Maybe it's an NIL issue in the state of Oklahoma. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the conversation we have about Alabama is, can Alabama ever be Alabama again? And really, I think the teams with the biggest advantage in the SEC right now, I think, you ask me, can Texas come in and be dominant? I do. And unless something changes with NIL, they're going to have the biggest advantage because they've got the state of Texas has a lot of money. There's a lot of oil advantage there. Rick always brings up, sure, there's money in Birmingham, but not the same as Texas.
Yeah.
So can Alabama's collective be as competitive without the same sort of resources and money as some of these other places? So, that's a whole nother layer that we've never even thought about in previous years that's creeping their way in. So I don't know what Oklahoma's situation is, but I know that we've seen the evidence that Texas is well positioned. So I think they're going to come in and be fine. And I would not be surprised if they won the league in their first year. I really would not be shocked at all if that was the fate. If we saw Texas being playoff representatives being in the playoff. Yeah. What's so weird about it, though, is that, we're going to have a lot of playoff representatives this year for the SEC.
Well, and the thing about Oklahoma is the one thing I'll give Brent Venables credit for is I think he is building the team in his image of what a football team should be, a la the way Clemson was built when they won championships, which was elite defensive line play. And he's building that right now. I just don't think they're there on offense yet. And their schedule is just significantly
really
more
hard.
difficult.
Yeah. Hard.
So I do think that both programs are equipped to handle the week in and week out grind of the line of scrimmage. I just think Texas is further along and has the bodies to do it right away. And so I think that's the more underrated storyline is not, all the big flashy stuff with Texas and Oklahoma. It's the boring line of scrimmage warfare. It's, are you prepared to go week in and week out? And Texas has to go to Michigan. So that's not an easy game, but that game, you could lose that game and still win the SEC. So I think it's going to be very interesting what they do. But I wanted to ask you about that one because I keep getting a lot of questions about, one side of the coin is Texas is totally prepared. Look what they did last year. They've got a returning quarterback. He's very good. Sark is a great game planner. They've fixed the culture. They've recruited at a high level, and they dominated in the portal. That's all really good stuff. And the schedule sets up. You get Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. That's not. They could have done a lot worse. And then the other side of the coin is, but Texas is still Texas, and Quinn Ewers has missed some games and has been injured, and it's a much harder schedule. And it really is one of the more interesting teams that's ever changed conferences. A team that's this prepared to win at this kind of a level. All right, so let's get to some.
What's interesting though, really quick, is that when they were joining the league, we thought they were in trouble. When they joined, they added a lot of value from a name perspective, but their program was in disarray. It's amazing how the timing of all of this happened and really kind of opened the door for them because they were stuck in the gutter and things changed. And Chris Del Conte gets a lot of credit for it, the athletic director, but it's kind of amazing because when they first joined the league, I think most of us would have said Oklahoma was the best position of the two.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think Kevin Eltief also, who I believe is the board of directors of the trustees or something like that. He's the one who, and I can't remember. I really need to cite who said this, and I cannot remember because I listen to so much content and I can't remember who said this, but coaches at major programs, they're not hired, they're elected. And I think Steve Sarkisian was elected because Texas got organized and said, no, we're not going to go with Tom Herman again. We're not going to do this. We've got to change now, and we've got to do it quickly. And they elected, and that decision was made above Chris Del Conte's head to get rid of Tom Herman. They were set to bring him back, and then they switched it all up, and here they are. Seems like the right move. All right, so I want to get to some other storylines that I just don't think we've talked enough about, and with Media Days coming up, I'm sure we'll get to a lot of these. But on this show in particular, I focused so heavily on. It's my fault too. I focused so heavily on the great quarterback play in this league, The Ole Miss storyline is fascinating. Nick Saban retiring in Alabama and Kalen DeBoer is fascinating. Georgia is boringly the number one team in the nation. Missouri is trying to do the other. They're like a Ole Miss light. Texas and Oklahoma are joining. There's so many huge storylines. But like Shane Beamer, I am utterly fascinated with so much about South Carolina. Number one, expectations. Where does the fan base think this program can get? Is it going to be easier or tougher without divisions for South Carolina? I don't know. I think they've got a more interesting quarterback battle than people realize, because I think everyone assumes that Lenora Sellers is going to be the guy, the Cam Newton clone, but Robbie Ashford's there too. Shane Beamer had overachieved in two seasons, and then a really difficult schedule and a bad offensive line led to a disappointing season last year. I think he's got a little bit of leash here. I think he's a pretty good CEO. He's an interesting character, but South Carolina is a team so far this offseason that no one has talked about. And I'm just curious what expectations should be for Shane Beamer in South Carolina.
Yeah, so I think they haven't been talked about for good reason, because there's not a lot to talk about. South Carolina, to me, is one of the toughest jobs in America, because you have a fan base that is rabid. You have an incredibly loyal, dedicated fan base. You've had a little taste of success. Steve Spurrier had a few 11-win seasons. Obviously, at the end of that year, a couple of years ago for Shane Beamer, they had that win over Tennessee. Who else did they beat? That was big. It was somebody.
Clemson.
Yes, yeah. Which is, in that state, that's everything. So he generated a lot of momentum last year. Certainly, they didn't live up to it. I kind of look at him as Sam Pittman 2.0, as a guy that came in. It was a broken program. Sam Pittman took over a program that got its ass whipped by Western Kentucky the year before. So when he came in and won 3 games, people peed their pants. Like they did. And then the next year they won 9 and they really peed their pants. And then Arkansas has kind of come back down to earth. Arkansas to me is an average program. South Carolina to me historically is a below average program. And is Shane Beamer special? I like him a lot. I love his mom. His mom, Cheryl Beamer, is one of the great. I love her. And Frank's a great dude. And anytime I see him, they ask about Morgan, and, God bless him. And, no offense to them, but I don't know if Shane, I just think that job's hard. I think nowadays it's gotten harder. I think this league, the scheduling in the league is a real pain in the ass. And I just, you have to kind of be lucky. Like James Franklin at Vanderbilt winning 9 games, taking advantage of
bad coaches.
Yeah. Really, I think that's South Carolina, and Steve Spurrier, and it didn't last forever, and he fired himself essentially. So I just think it's not Vanderbilt hard, but it's hard. I think it's gotten harder in this new era, and I think he won a lot early, and I think kind of the expectation for them should be 7-5. That to me is acceptable. It's South Carolina.
If they go 7-5 this year, I would say that's a pretty successful season.
But I just kind of feel that's who they are. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's South Carolina football to me. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong.
No. I don't. Actually, I do think Arkansas is in the same category as South Carolina. And I think that Arkansas has gotten, and to in the pod with J-Rod's point, I think Arkansas is more interesting in the offseason from like a conversation standpoint, because we clearly know that Bobby Petrino wants the job. He's on the staff and Sam Pittman's on the hot seat. None of that exists at South Carolina from like a storyline standpoint. So I feel like that's why South Carolina has been far less talked about.
Laugh so much.
I know.
There is did I ever tell you the story? Quick, can I? I hate to throw you off rails, but I think it's our relationship.
Okay.
So I was at Arkansas on a camp tour not long ago. I don't know. Well, it was actually a while ago. Brett Bielema was the head coach there, but there was a secretary, the lady who worked, the front desk for the football program. Yep. She had been there through several coaches. And if she's still there, I'll never forget when I was talking to her and Bielema was the coach, and she was like, "You just have no idea. Petrino was a nightmare. It was just awful around here. I just love having Brett. It's a breath of fresh air. We actually smile. Petrino was just like working for the worst." Like, could you imagine? if he got the gig and she's working for dude again, I mean, that would be a nightmare.
Didn't you and I do a camp tour at Louisville with Bobby Petrino?
I always think about that because
that was his first year back, I think.
Yeah, and he had Lamar Jackson. You introduced him the word analytics. And
that's right. I forgot about that.
Remember that? And he became like hyper, which
oh my god, we were
out there. There was Moneyball was out there for a while.
Let's set the scene. Let's set the scene real fast. We are in like what amounts to like a, I would say like
conference room kind of.
No, but I would say this is like a position coach meeting.
Oh, that's right. I remember
this
that room.
is this is a room that is probably like 12 by 15 with like 3 little tables and a dry erase board.
Yeah.
And we talked to Lamar. You and I talked to Lamar Jackson for like a good 20 minutes. And very nice kid. And he goes on about his business. And you're right. I said something about like, when do you know when to, it was about going for it, game time decisions, about third downs and fourth downs and all that kind of stuff. And I think I asked him about like, how much do you use it or whatever? And he was like, what's that word? And I was like, Coach, it's like 2018. Like what year was he there? I don't remember when he was
been out there for a while. And he I think he wrote it down and he went and looked it up. Like, so you might have actually changed his life. You might have changed his life. You might have been the reason Lamar Jackson won a Heisman Trophy the next year. I don't know, but he's waiting in the wings. He's lurking. He is lurking.
But again, that makes them a topic that we talk about. When somebody asks, I mean, I'm sure you get these calls all the time. I do radio interviews all the time, and they're like, well, who's on the hot seat in the SEC? And it's like, well, Sam Pittman is number one. I think there are some really good players on that team. Like Jackson, the defensive end, like he's a good player. Like there's good players on the team, but they don't have bodies. I like the under 4.5 wins, honestly. Like I don't think they're going to be very good.
Yeah.
And I think when you have Bobby P casting a shadow like that, so to me, that's a story that everyone's talking about. I don't think we know what Shane Beamer's situation is. And to your point about what should South Carolina be, I think they are one of the most fascinating programs in America because no other program in America has the natural recruiting base, the 6-hour radius around South Carolina with a huge fan base that will go like 85,000 strong to a stadium and like in the premier conference. I know they've only been in it since 92, but like there's sort of no reason. I know it's really saturated, right? Georgia and Clemson and Florida State, and they all recruit. Tennessee, everybody recruits down there, but they are a program that should be much better than what they've been over time, even before coming to the SEC. And so I honestly have no idea what to expect. And now everyone's like assuming that Lenore Sellers is going to be the guy. I've talked to a few different people that have said, watch out for Robbie Ashford to beat him out. And I'm like, is that what South Carolina fans want? Like, I don't know. And
how encouraging is that if it's Robbie Ashford?
I find them to be fascinating.
Though. I don't think they're that good at quarterback. I don't think they're that good. I mean, Spencer Rattler he is what he is. You know what Spencer Rattler, but I don't think Ashford's that good. I don't think their quarterback situation's that good. I don't think they're that good. I think their schedule's hard. And when you add 1 + 1, it equals 2.
The other two,
I think they're kind of Sam Pittman, Arkansas.
Yeah. And I would argue nationally, if you were ranking programs like 1 to 135, I would probably have Arkansas at like 26. And I'm not talking about this year's teams. I'm talking about as a program. Like if you're ranking the jobs, if you're a coach, like I would probably have Arkansas and South Carolina at like 26 and 27 or something like that.
They're right around the same.
They're pretty close. They're the two that are on the border of like the haves in the SEC and the have-nots. And the haves have all won national championships. The have-nots have not. Missouri and Ole Miss are normally have-nots, not this year. But I want to get to two other teams.
It creates an unfair expectation, though, being one of those border.
I agree.
Border teams.
And God bless them. God bless them. It's a great atmosphere, etc. Both of them, Arkansas and South Carolina, both great stadiums, both great atmospheres. So here's the other one that I think we have not talked about enough at all heading into SEC Media Days, and that is Mark Stoops going to retire at the end of the year? And I would not be surprised because I think Kentucky could be sneaky good. They've got a really good defensive line. I think they've got a pretty good offensive line. They've got to figure out if Bush Hamden and Brock Vandegrift and like a whole new offense can do it again. But I could see Kentucky being like 9-3 or 8-4, something better than we expect. And Mark Stoops being like, I think I've done all I can do here. I'm gonna leave like my brother did, with like my sanity intact. I made a ton of money. I got my own bourbon line in Lexington. I'm the winningest. I've broken Bear Bryant's records in Lexington. I think there's a chance that Stoops is like, I'm tired of beating my head against this wall. I've done everything I can for this program. I want to go sit on a boat, and I would not be surprised if they win a lot of games or if they tank and he's like, I'm out of here. I would not be surprised if and no one's really talked. Like, he tried to leave to go to A&M.
I know.
Like, just a couple of months ago.
I know.
So I don't think we're talking enough about this Stoops Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something no one's talking about.
I think that's interesting. I'm a big fan of his. I think what he's done at Kentucky to make them relevant has been incredible. I have not thought about that. But as you were talking about it, I think that makes a lot of sense.
June 19th, motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, the world changed. It's harder to do the Kentucky job than it was a couple of years ago, going back to everything we said with NIL and geography, and Kentucky's a difficult place. I'm with you. I think they're pretty good this year. But the fact that this guy's legacy at Kentucky, I think, is going to be astounding. And they should name everything from a football perspective after him, because here's the thing. We actually were talking when John Calipari made the comment about how we're a basketball school, and people were genuinely debating that. And I think we all agree that Kentucky's a basketball school. But the fact of the matter is, Mark Stoops made it a conversation, and he got pissed off, and he made it to the point where we just didn't laugh at him. It wasn't like, oh yeah, like he competed for SEC East championships. He's been to a lot of, prestigious ish bowl games. Ish. Yeah. I mean, they've certainly more than anything that we saw when we were kids. Right. I mean, this program, they had their little Tim Couch moment and their little Jared Lorenzen, and they've been cute from time to time, but nothing like what we've seen with Stoops. I remember when they played Georgia at home for the SEC East championship, and I was like, this is Kentucky. I mean, this is a different world right now. The longevity in a modern era where people get fired every 10 minutes, that's incredible. I think he raised the bar. So for him, if he runs his race, even if he goes 7-5, I'm Kentucky. I had a good season. I went to another bowl game. Somebody else can do this job. And I've put us in a way better position than when I took over. And I give Mitch Barnhart a lot of credit, because Mitch Barnhart early on extended this guy, gave him a raise when he was 2-10, and saw the fact that this guy had the chops. The problem is the world is different. I mean, that's what's so weird about it. I was thinking about, these analysts that always talk about, well, this was a great hire, or, that's a great hire or a great fit. I remember, Jeff Lebby going to Mississippi State, and Cole Kublik was like, that's a great hire. And I love Cole, and maybe he's 100% right. Maybe it is the best hire of all time. But how do we even fucking know what's a good hire anymore? Because the world is changing every day. We have no idea what roster management's going to look like in a year or two. We have no idea if there's going to be a cap. We don't know what the fuck's going on. So I don't know how you even judge anybody anymore, because like Mark Stoops was a good coach. Is he a good coach now? I don't know in this modern era. And like, that's the thing. Nick Saban,
I think that plays into his head, though. I think that's what he's thinking about. He's like, do I really want to keep doing this?
Nick Saban fucking quit. That's what he did. He said, I'm done. I can't be myself anymore.
Well, he earned the right. He earned the right to quit.
He did, but he quit. He admitted that I cannot be Nick Saban anymore. The world changed. The kids want something different. I can't do my thing, and so I'm out. I don't need to be Nick Saban anymore.
Which, by the way, if you listen to this show for the last few years, I have been saying Nick Saban's going to wake up one day and he's going to be like, I can't be the best version of myself anymore.
So I'm done.
And I'm done. And it's what happened. It's what happened.
Yeah, he fired himself.
I think Stoops, I don't think Stoops is wired all that differently. I really don't. I think Stoops is.
And his brother had one of the great dismounts ever. I mean,
he's wired the same way. Mm-hmm. And I just think that when you like, he's going to get to, if they have a pretty good season this year. And actually, again, I think Kentucky could be sneaky good this year. They're good along the line of scrimmage. It's all about, can they reinstall a whole new offense again? Yeah. Like he's not, it's also not easy. Like, think about what he's dealt with trying to put together offenses every single year with a new coordinator and a new quarterback and a new system and transfer this. And like, he's had to completely redesign the offense almost every year. And that is just really, really hard to do when you're a defensive-minded coach and you've built up the defensive side of the ball to a point where it's never been this good before. Like I could right now, I could line up Oklahoma with Kentucky in a game, and I bet you Kentucky wins the line of scrimmage battle. And that is an astonishing thing to say out loud. That Kentucky,
that's a tribute to Mark Stoops,
and that is all Stoops. It doesn't mean he's an elite coach. It doesn't mean he deserves the Hall of Fame or any of that stuff. I'm not saying that he's like, Nick Saban or whatever.
I'd put him in the Hall of Fame,
but you got to give him credit. And I think he's gonna reinvent it.
Les Miles in the Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, Les Miles
suing
the SEC or whatever, or LSU. Besmirching my good name while I cover up sexual assault. No,
exactly. Yeah.
All right. So I got two more here I want to get to.
Yeah.
And actually we kind of mentioned one of them already. You kind of mentioned Levy, and I want to talk about the strategy around hiring Levy, not necessarily if he's the right answer or not, because I think the strategy at Mississippi State was properly deployed in this conversation. And this is, again, what I think is not being covered enough. If you're going to try to win at Mississippi State, I think you definitely have to do something different on offense. Mike Leach was perfect example of that. Yep. Dan Mullen was a pretty good example of that. You kind of have to be a little different. I think you have to be very good at NIL. Mississippi State right now as a program is not, but Jeff Levy is largely credited with getting Oklahoma's NIL machine off the ground and running. So Jeff Levy, very good in this way. And you know what else you kind of need to do at Mississippi State? You kind of need to stick it to Ole Miss. And I think I don't love the idea of hiring a coach to troll your arch rival, but I kind of do at the same time. So while I don't think they're going to win a lot of games this year, I do think they're going to be they're going to upset some people in recruiting. They're going to be interesting to watch on offense, and he's going to piss off Lane Kiffin. And if you do those three things this year at Mississippi State, then you're probably one of the more underrated storylines in the conference, in my opinion.
I know people really like him. It was a popular hire when he got the gig. He's a big, assistant coach name in the past and certainly has deep ties. I just think Ole Miss is so far ahead when it comes to their identity with Lane Kiffin. I think the fact that we've opened up a 12-team playoff is only going to enhance Ole Miss's reputation and identity. They're going to be kind of stamped as a playoff contender every year with Lane. He's killing it in the portal. That might motivate all the people at State to, not really putz around and really get on board with the collective and give this guy every resource known to man. I just, in my heart of hearts, I think there's not a lot of difference between him and Joe Moorhead and the way that it's going to end up.
I don't disagree.
That's just my.
I think
it might be more the job than it's Levy. You know what I mean? Like it might be more the job.
I think it's a 3.5-year tenure, and they hover around 500, and then they move on. I think that's about But again, that's just statistical probability. That's not like
the job, and that goes in with Sam Pittman. Like Sam Pittman, should he really be on the hot seat? I mean, Arkansas was absolute trash when he took over. What is Arkansas? I mean, is Arkansas, should we really expect them to be anything more than 7-5? I
think they can. I think they can.
Consistently, maybe. I don't know. But should you be doing the coaching shuffle every couple? I mean, that's
no. But I think having a Texas tie, like South Carolina doesn't have the deep roots to the state of Florida and to Georgia the way Arkansas has
to Texas,
like decades of ties to the state of Texas.
And
I think to be able to maximize, you need a coach who's able to maximize that relationship and to call yourself literally Texarkana. Like if you can call yourself part of Texas now, especially now that you're kind of wrapped in the conference with Oklahoma and Texas around you, I think you have to be able to recruit Texas, but you also have to keep every big name player in the state of Arkansas at home. You got tons of money, tons of fan support. I think Arkansas can absolutely be better than 7-5. I think South Carolina is more of a 7-5 program. I think Mississippi State is a 7-5 program. I think Arkansas could be a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
Especially in the new conference. So we'll see.
8-4. We'll give them 8.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So the last one I want to ask you about, and Hugh Freeze is a huge storyline. There's no question about that. We're going to talk about Hugh Freeze a lot, all off season, all during the season, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the quarterback position and the quarterback play at Auburn is utterly fascinating to me because they did not go out and get anybody, even though maybe they tried. They certainly tried last year. Peyton Thorne when he had, like, I think it was Keon Coleman and Kenneth Walker, like he had, was it Tank Dell? I can't remember who the other receiver was at Michigan State.
Sounds right.
Or Jaden Reed, maybe.
Yeah.
They had a couple of NFL receivers and Kenneth Walker, and he was very good. They're going to be better along the offensive line. They're going to be better at wide receiver. I think Auburn in general is going to be better. It sounds like Hugh Freeze is going to take over more control of the play calling. But the Auburn quarterback situation is, again, we saw Graham Mertz do something last year that no one thought he could do, which was sort of like when he gets good coaching and a good system, he turned into a totally different player. Maturity, he was very efficient last year. I am curious if Peyton Thorne, if there's a reason they didn't go out and get anybody. There's a reason they didn't try too hard to replace him. There's a reason Hugh Freeze still believes in him. Or am I making this all up? I honestly don't know. And I think Thorne is going to dictate so many storylines in this conference because they could pull an upset or two and cost somebody a playoff spot. They had Georgia on the ropes last year at home. They had Alabama. They should have won the game last year against Bama. They would have cost both those teams a playoff spot last year. It's not that crazy to think Auburn is going to play a major role in the standings this year, even if they're not the team that we're talking about.
Watch him end up being a top 3 quarterback in the league.
That's what I'm saying.
I kind of agree with you. I think, and if it was like, let's say Jeff Lebby or Sam Pittman or somebody like that, I wouldn't have the faith, but I have a lot of faith in Hugh Freeze in quarterback play and his ability to develop guys. I mean, we've seen it everywhere that he's gone. You might not like Hugh Freeze as a person. You might not like the phone calls that he makes in the middle of the night, but the guy can get talent. He knows how to go out there. He knows how to acquire guys, and I think he knows how to assess a roster. And if he feels comfortable at quarterback, I don't think there's any reason to panic and change. It could all be about development. The thing about Peyton Thorne, he's played a lot of football. I mean, he's played a lot of football. He's seen a lot of defenses. And for some players, it's just about, oh, the light goes off, right? Oh my God. Now I see it now. I see the defense. I can make that read. I can hit that guy. There's something that happens mentally that might have happened during the spring. If that's the case, Auburn's one of those teams that for whatever reason with Hugh Freeze, in my head, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be better than people think.
Yeah. I mean,
and he's going to be better than people think.
Well, and if he is, he'll take all the credit. And if he's not, he'll push all the blame on somebody else. I'm not sitting here defending Hugh Freeze the person.
No,
but I do think he has a certain floor as a coach, and I think the floor is pretty high. Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. Peyton Thorne has played a lot of football. And he's more athletic than people give him credit for, which is what Hugh Freeze wants out of his quarterback. And so I think we all look at this 2 years in a row and they're like, what are you doing, Auburn? You didn't even go get a quarterback. And maybe it's just because Hugh Freeze likes this guy for this year. I think they need to recruit their big name guy, and I think they actually have one committed for next year. But I think that they need to go get their Nico or whatever. But I think for now, I think there's a chance that he has his best season as a college quarterback, that Hugh Freeze does a pretty good job putting better pieces around him. They have better protection. They got a really good running back in Hunter. I just think there's more to like about the Auburn offense than I think we have given them credit for thus far in the offseason. And I don't like that. I don't like that I'm saying that, but
no, I don't, but I don't disagree with you. And I trust Hugh Freeze. I give him the benefit of the doubt more than I don't.
And I would say the same story for Florida, but Florida's such a big story because Billy Napier's the number one coach.
He's in trouble.
No, I think you're wrong about that. But
you don't think Napier's going to get fired?
No, I don't think he does.
Oh, wow.
I think they go 8-4 and he keeps his job.
Okay, cool. I'll write that down.
I'm just bold. Full of Texas is going to lose to A&M.
Okay.
Mark Stoops is going to retire.
Okay.
Billy Napier keeps his job.
Okay.
Peyton Thorne, top 6 quarterback in the conference.
Okay.
I'll just keep going. You want me to keep going?
You've aroused me.
Oh yeah. How you?
Athlon magazine. I can't.
How are your pants fitting? Your pants a little tighter?
A little tighter.
A little tighter.
100%.
No, the reason I wouldn't put Florida into this particular conversation we're having is that I think, like Sam Pittman, people ask about Billy Napier. Like when you do radio interviews or when you get calls on your show, I'm assuming there's a lot of chatter about Billy Napier because everyone's like, well, he's on the hot seat. What's going to happen? Year 3, Florida Gators expect championships. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but Graham Mertz might have saved his job. and Graham Mertz is going to be really good this year. They're going to mix in DJ Lagway. They're going to have packages for him the way Georgia sort of mixed in Justin Fields and Anthony Richardson before that. Like, it's just the defensive coaching staff is totally different. Their schedule is absolutely brutal, but if they beat Miami and A&M early, they own Tennessee. If they
do that, I'm gonna come buy you some of those great tacos that are by you. That what's that place called? That like old school cheap taco place that's really good.
There's a lot of those in Nashville. You're talking about Moss Tacos?
Moss Tacos.
Yeah.
Moss Tacos on me if you get that right.
I had some spicy chicken tortilla soup yesterday, actually.
It's delicious.
If you're feeling a little head cold, get that spicy chicken tortilla soup. It's great. All right, I'll take that. I just think there's also not a lot of downward pressure on Billy Napier from the boosters. Like Scott Strickland might get fired. But I think for Billy Napier to get fired, Scott Strickland has to get fired. And I don't know if there's a lot of downward pressure on Scott Strickland right now because the boosters don't have the money that A&M has, for example. They're just not they're not as like there's only a handful of them and they sort of make the decisions, whereas with Texas and A&M there's like there's dozens of guys, that are like billionaires. So I think the Billy Napier thing is long because I think they're better than people think this year too. I think they're also better. Kentucky, Florida, and Auburn are the three that I think are like probably like 9, 10, 11, 8, 9, 10 in the conference. They're not competing for a playoff spot, but they are competing for top 25 status. And I think they're all three of them are better than people think. All right.
Disagree.
Put it on the board.
All right. Roll Tide.
Favorite place you went to in Europe on your most recent trip? Favorite city, favorite spot?
What was it? Positano.
Is that Italy?
Yeah, it's Amalfi Coast. It's incredible. And then Rome. And then Barcelona was great.
Well, you have an Italian background.
Yeah, so but I'm telling you, Italy's amazing. Like, it's fantastic. Yeah, you'd love it.
New fascist government.
I know.
I'm just playing.
I know. I've heard
signs
and all that.
I've heard
Georgia. I saw Georgia posters.
Yeah, I've heard London and Italy are just like so vastly different,
but incredible.
But both great. Yeah,
Barcelona is a lot like Paris. I felt
Barcelona.
Like it had very Paris-y vibes. But
I hear Paris is just like New York City. It's just like another big city. Am I wrong?
It's dirty like it. I'll say that. And it's crowded like it. It's got more. I mean, it looks like Paris. Yeah. It looks like Paris still, but it's not like it doesn't look like. And I'm
like London felt like a small town to me.
Yeah, like I go to New York all the time.
I love
it, but New York feels like a giant toilet. Like it doesn't have.
I mean, I love the energy, but I agree.
Quite the toilety vibes, but
I thought London was like the most sophisticated
magic.
It's sophisticated. It's civilized. It's chill. Everybody kind of does what they want to do. Everyone's
magical.
London was great.
And they like soccer. It's amazing.
They do love soccer. All right. I think that about does it for us. Thank you all for listening to both Bo and J-Rod arguing all day, all show in the comments. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Childers, where can everybody find you, man, and catch your work, please?
Oh gosh, SiriusXM. That's where I'm at. I do a show I'm actually on in 5 minutes for SiriusXM NASCAR Radio.
It's my favorite part of the show is when you say that.
Yeah, backstretch banner and with RFK Racing, and we're Brett Keselowski's running the Red Sox car this week, which is really cool. And then on Full Ride with Rick Neuheisel Monday through Friday on Channel 84 at 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
There you have it. Thank you guys all for listening. Thank you guys for hanging out. You can get to me on twitter.com at Braden Gall. Subscribe, like, that really helps people find the show and the channel. We do appreciate you guys. Share it on all the other platforms as well, Twitter, Facebook, and the podcast app as well. And if you want to write a review, please do. But remember, if you do not give us 5 stars, you are a hater. For Chris, I am Braden. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.